Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Becoming series. This is our November Becoming series. So I can see people rolling in now, which is great. Depending on where you are across Canada, you might be sitting down to eat dinner, and you might actually just be sitting down and starting your lunch. And sometimes we have people from all over the world. So if you're outside of Canada, the more the merrier. Welcome to tonight's event. Super happy to have you here. I'm going to be going over some housekeeping before we get started, just to let people join in and give everyone a few minutes to get settled after, I think for a lot of it's been a long week at the end of a long couple months. So, I hope everyone gets to have a relaxing evening after this. And thanks for finding time for us at the end of your day. And tonight's event, so our Becoming series is a series of almost like career nights where we're featuring leaders in the field who have great experience to share, who can tell us about their own experiences and about opportunities in the sector and ways to bring new people and to enjoying the experiences and the opportunities there are in energy efficiency. And tonight we're featuring Jordyn Burnouf. So I'll be giving her a bit of an intro in just a few minutes. So thanks for joining us, Jordyn. Super excited to hear what you've got to share with everyone tonight. For housekeeping, I do want to let everyone know that Jordyn will be presenting for about 20 or 25 minutes, and afterwards we'll have lots of time for questions, either through the Q&A tool, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen, or you can raise your hand to unmute your microphone and ask questions that way. It's a bit more conversational and super comfortable space, so feel free to do that as an option. And we will be recording tonight's event, just so everybody knows. And before we begin, I do want to recognize that Ottawa and the Office of Efficiency Canada is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Today's speaker is Jordyn Burnouf. Jordyn is a Nahiwa Cree woman and a member of the Black Lake Dene Nation in Treaty 8. Jordyn grew up in the Métis community of Île-à-la-Crosse, Saskatchewan in Treaty 10 territory, where she's currently leading her community's energy efficiency project, Bringing It Home, as part of Indigenous Clean Energy's national initiative to address the housing and energy needs of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities in Canada. Jordyn is also an associate with Medicine Rope Strategies, an Indigenous-owned and operated consulting company dedicated to providing sustainable, practical, and innovative approaches to community, economic, and strategic partnership development. And that just scratches the surface. There's so much more to hear about. So without taking up any more time, Jordyn, I am going to pass it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kirsten, and thank you to everybody for joining us today. I was so looking forward to this. I think it's important to share where we're coming from for people to be able to really see what a dynamic sector the energy sector really can be, right? And you don't need to be an engineer or an electrician to get into this field. There's all different sorts of ways that you can get involved, and I think my story is a little bit unique in that sense. So I was very excited to share. So thank you to Kirsten and Efficiency Canada for inviting me and providing me this space to be able to share my story with all of you. And I'm looking forward to your questions at the end. So feel free to blast those off at the end. So where I'll start, as Kirsten said, I'm a member of Black Lake First Nation. So that's in northern Saskatchewan, probably the farthest point in Saskatchewan north. And I grew up in Île-à-la-Crosse, which is also in northern Saskatchewan, kind of more near the center of the province. In a small community, a Métis community, with about 1,700 people. I think I graduated with 22 people in our class. So that's kind of where my story started. And, I was actually just having a conversation with my dad the other day. And we were talking about kind of, where everything's at right now in my life. And kind of, he made a comment about how I was very much so raised by my cookums, my cookum and some of her friends. And so, what that looked like was me living in the bush, spending a lot of time outside and I think that really nurtured a love for the environment. And for Cookums, the Cookum teachings, I think that is something that I really carry with me, and I try to bring into all of my work that I do. But that really like resonated with me when he mentioned that. I thought that was really, really cool, and it makes a lot of sense for kind of where I'm at right now. So shout out to all the Cookums out there that, you know, help raise little ones. We really don't realize how big of an impact just spending time outside and being outside and connected to nature really will impact people. So yeah, stay safe, but also remember to get outside. So yeah, my journey kind of started in Isle of Cross. I graduated in a small community, and then went to university in Saskatoon, in Saskatchewan, which is kind of where I'm in between right now. So I'm back and forth between Saskatoon and Isle of Cross. Isle of Cross is where I'm doing the energy project that Kirsten had mentioned with Indigenous clean energy. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, so I attended university at the University of Saskatchewan. Going into university, I wanted to become a doctor. That was one of the really cool things that I saw, you know, the visible success in communities, and I think that's one of the things that I'd really like to try to change, and I try to challenge with young people when we have those conversations about like what do you want to do, what do you want to become, right? And so it's like, you know, become an astronaut, become whatever you want to be. If it's a job that isn't existing right now, like create it, you know? So I always try to open minds that way, because I think like my own experience, you know, I always thought like, oh, the doctor, that's the coolest thing in a community. That's the best thing that you could be, right? So I think that's where my driver was, but I don't think that was necessarily my passion. And then so that shifted, and I got really interested in psychology, and so I started to study psychology, and still to this day I love it, and I think that helps me to kind of do better in the work that I do in terms of like how I conduct myself professionally and personally, and how those kind of intertwine in a lot of the work that we do. And I think in the environmental and energy sector, I think that's really important, right? Is our connectedness with each other, and understanding that like it's all connected, right? Like you see the moose above my head here. But you know, us as people, where we come from, all of those teachings that we carry, and that connectedness to the land and to where we come from. Do we carry that in the work that we do? Do we think of those teachings, of those values that we were raised with in, you know, when we're conducting business, right? So yeah, I think that's a really important teaching, that and something that I'm super grateful that I've taken away from studying psychology. And then so from there, I I had a few different jobs that, you know, I thought I was following my passion, and I think at the time I was, and as we grow, we adapt and we change. And I think I am very much so a chameleon in a sense that you know, I'm very adaptable, and I think as I'm getting a little bit older, my driving force and my passions are, you know, though they're more aligned with who I am as a person and kind of where I've come from, and I've become much more self-aware, right? And so I think that really reflects in where I'm at in terms of a job. So I, you know, with this psychology background, I became a consultant for people with disabilities. And then I did that for a while and changed it up. And then I became a oh my goodness, what is it called? A student recruitment officer. And so I traveled all throughout northern Saskatchewan and recruited students for a college, and then, you know, saw a huge lack of cultural representation in a college that had predominantly Indigenous students, right? So and then I helped create this cultural piece to this school, which was really, really interesting. And then from there, I needed another change, right? And it kind of came at a really interesting time in my life. I was dealing with some stuff professionally, so I just needed, there was something inside me that I needed a drastic change. And I'd always been interested in the environment and being out on the land. And so I'm like, okay, what can I do? How can I, get to that place? And sorry, Kirsten, maybe I'll get you to switch a few slides there. Yeah, this is kind of one of the the inspirations. That's my dad. We're going out to our hunting spot. I think most people probably think I'm a vegetarian because I'm such a poor hunter, but I do try to hunt, still unsuccessful, but we can switch to the next slide. Yeah, just some of the inspirations of kind of where I come from. That's what it looks like. And this is one of the lakes that we always go to hunt at every year. And I think that's definitely influenced where I'm at. And we can go to the next slide. Ooh. And I have good old Oprah, a nice Oprah quote in here: passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. And then the next slide, it shows just I'm part of a movement. So this is kind of where my journey in the energy sector really started. I attended an Indigenous Youth Energy Summit, and that was in Calgary. And Corey Beaver and my friend Disa, they put this thing together. And it's the first of it. It was the first of its kind, an Indigenous Energy Summit for Indigenous youth. And I attended just on a whim, just out of general interest. I was like, okay, this looks really, really cool and something that I'm interested in. And maybe that can lead me to my next journey in life, right? So I attended that, and that's my good friend Nathan, and now one of my really close friends and someone that I work with regularly, and now we've kind of taken over the Indigenous Energy Summit, and it's called 7Gen. And so we've been planning for the last what seems like forever, having to do this with COVID, but it's just really created all sorts of different challenges. But yeah, Nathan and I are co-chairs of the 2021, which was supposed to be 2020, but this is where we're at now. But it's going to be probably in the fall of 2021. We've had to shift to kind of, everybody's figuring out what's going on in the world right now with COVID. So, but yeah, I'm working on that with my friend Nathan. And so how I got there, I attended the summit, and, I'm just so grateful to have met people like Meredith Adler, who's the executive director of Student Energy. And Student Energy is a global organization, and they provide an opportunity for young people to get involved in the energy sector. And, not just to become aware of it, but to actively get involved. And I think, this summit that I attended in Calgary was really a major turning point. And it truly led me to what I'm passionate about now. And so, one of the things that had happened at that summit was we were pulled into an engagement session, right? And if you know about engagement and how that works, I especially as an Indigenous person and a woman and a young person, we're those like marginalized groups that are always like, well, we want to hear from you because we never hear from you, right? So I was a part of a group of 5 people, and we were asked a series of questions by about 15 different organizations. And, there was just something that didn't sit well with Nathan and I. And one, for me, I was the only woman in the room out of the group of not in the whole room, but out of the youth that were asked to be a part of this session. And it was just like, standard engagement questions on like, how do we, remove barriers to employment for Indigenous youth, all of these questions. And it's like, okay, well, I can tell you what I think, but that is only what I think, I can't sit here and act like I'm representing all Indigenous youth in Canada or in Saskatchewan, or, so it didn't really sit well. And one of the things that did come out of it, and I have to commend NRCan and the work that's been done with the outcome of that. But the question that came out of it was like, well, okay, what happens after this? And I couldn't very well sit and, know that, okay, now all of these organizations get to go and check a box, and that happens far too often. And what do we do to stop that, right? And so, that got Nathan and I to thinking, okay, well, how do we continue these conversations? We're asking these organizations the questions of what they're going to do to continue to involve us. But like, let's take some onus on ourselves. Let's take some responsibility of this topic and this issue, and let's do something about it ourselves. So then we were like, okay, let's start an Indigenous advisory council that can speak to these things, because there's always companies looking for youth to engage and to get advice from, right? And especially now we're seeing that more than ever. But without recreating the wheel, we wanted to do this in a really good way. And I think where we're at now with it is Nathan and I have started working with Student Energy on the 7Gen Summit, like I said. And then out of that, one of the bigger initiatives is the Indigenous Youth Mentorship Program, which we're currently developing, and we're looking for funding for that right now. And what that'll do is, build capacity for Indigenous youth to be able to build their own projects. And not only in the sense of like, what is energy and what can you do, but how do you get there? Like, you're learning about things like governance, right? When you're in university, you don't learn how to sit in a boardroom and how to conduct business. That's not necessarily a skill that's offered in English 110, like and it's more specific to commerce. I understand that. But, do we actually give young people the tools? Do we equip people to be able to succeed in these spaces if they're given the opportunity? We always say we need youth engagement, but yeah, we do need that, but we want it to be meaningful and we want it to continue. So we want people to be equipped in the best possible way so that doesn't end. Right. And so Nathan and I have been, and our whole team, if you switch forward a few more slides, or the next slide, I believe. Oh, this is the catalyst. I'll come back to this, but the next slide. Sorry, guys. This group. This is our lovely group of 7Gen, our 7Gen committee that's been planning all of this right now. So 7Gen led me to this wonderful group of young people who are just like powerhouses, right? And one person like who's become a mentor herself to me is Meredith Adler. And Meredith has just done an incredible job of empowering us and providing us so many opportunities to be able to really, do all of these amazing things, these ideas that we have to further engage Indigenous youth in the energy sector. So so that's a little bit about 7Gen. And then at 7Gen, I also presented an idea. So you have an opportunity to pitch. And I pitched my idea. And then after that session, that hackathon session, Erin Stewart, who's the director of the 2020 Catalyst program with Indigenous Clean Energy, she approached me, and it was pretty chaotic. Like, everybody was at different tables and, everyone's moving around trying to like share ideas and build their little projects. And so Erin comes up, she's like, Jordyn, I loved it. You've got to apply to our program. You'd be so great. And so I did, and I got in, and I was the 2019 cohort for the 2020 Catalyst program. And if you haven't heard of it, I would strongly suggest you take a look. There's some really incredible things that have come out of that program. Going back a few slides, you'll see. So this is some of the alumni from previous years. The one guy there in the white sweater at the end, he's a part of the Mi'kmaq First Nation, and they actually just launched one of the largest solar projects in Canada. So that is pretty cool. But yeah, there's like all sorts of really incredible clean energy projects that come out of the Catalyst program. So I was lucky enough to be selected, and one of the first to be selected from Saskatchewan. And if you haven't gotten a chance to see yet, Efficiency Canada just released their 2020 efficiency scorecard for Canada. And Saskatchewan is actually number 10, which means we're the worst at efficiency and in terms of what we offer, what we provide. It's a pretty sad place to be, but to me that just is opportunity, opportunity for us to do more, opportunity for people to learn, and opportunity for us to work with other provinces to see, what works, what doesn't, what can we do, and to be really innovative, right? Like I think where I grew up, uranium mining is really big in northern Saskatchewan, and our economy has just been suffering lately since the market's gone down. About 700 people were let go, so that's 700 families in northern Saskatchewan, where that was the main source of income for these families. So really changing that conversation and getting people to understand like what is out there in terms of employment and education in the energy sector. The Catalyst program really opened my eyes to that. So I'm super grateful for it. And so, it's 3 months. Every month you're doing a week-long intensive. And so we went to Salt Spring Island in BC, and we got to visit Chief Gordon Planis's community, the Tsaut Nation, and they're doing incredible things. And he's just such an inspirational person. That was the one stop. And then we were in Yellowknife for a week. We got to see all the really incredible biomass projects that are going on up there. We were also there for Aboriginal Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, and it was incredible. Like if you haven't seen the Dene culture, Dene hand drum, oh man, it's just beautiful, so beautiful. And then our third week we spent in Alton in Ontario, just an hour north of Toronto, and yeah, like it was 3 weeks, and it was seriously a lot. There was a lot of information, and we were paired with a mentor, and afterwards, so then that person will help us build whatever project we had applied with. Mine initially was mainly solar. I wanted to start learning about solar and create more opportunities in that area in the north. But if you look at our scorecard, you'll see that there's not a lot of opportunity for renewable projects in Saskatchewan. You need to be on a priority list with the utility, and northern Saskatchewan is not in one of those priority areas. And looking at a map, it's clear to see that those are centered around oil and gas and that industry. So that needs to shift as well. I think that's a big issue in our province. But so with what I had, I think, and having advisors like Chris Henderson and Aaron and Ian Skoltons is my mentor right now, and Kara Sanders. An easy low-hanging fruit, I think, that is there for everybody to grasp at is efficiency, energy efficiency. And just with the limits and barriers that existed in my province right now, it just made sense. So my project quickly shifted from, solar and that route, and it became an energy efficiency housing project. And so after the Catalyst program, my community, Isla Crosse, was chosen one of 6 communities in Canada to lead a housing initiative, which is their newest program, which is called Bringing It Home. And so what we're actually going to do is do a community-wide retrofit program. And so we'll do energy audits of every home. We'll, train people. We'll educate community members so that, they understand consumption. They understand, like, when you turn off your lights, what does that mean when you take shorter showers? How does that all play a role in the bigger, grander scheme of things? And just all of those little things, those little steps that people can take. Those are some of the bigger things. And I guess, yeah, it's just creating capacity in communities and equipping people, because a lot of those jobs already exist in communities. We have electricians, we have our contractors, we have people that can public speak, we have our knowledge keepers that know about the land, that have known about conservation since time immemorial. That's one of the greatest teachings that in my culture is, you only take what you need, and you always give back, right? You always offer tobacco, or you're giving back in some way. And you're not taking more. And we're very much like our society is like a capitalist consumer society where we always need to take, and so I think if we think about energy efficiency in that way, that it's, this reciprocity with the land and with ourselves, really, in this respect and understanding of each other, and that it's so much deeper, and it kind of hits a little bit closer to your heart when you think about it in that way. It's not just like, okay, so I'm using less energy to save more money, and that's going to reduce GHG emissions and save the world, which like is also a really nice way to think of it. But when we think of the earth and the land and our relationship to it and to other people, I think that's a really beautiful way of truly understanding what efficiency is. So I guess, yeah, so I'm doing this Bringing It Home project in my community. And then I also am an associate with Medicine Rope Strategies. So some of the things that we do is we sell software. So we have software, we have one called Expert Data. And it's just, if you think of like LinkedIn, it's like kind of like LinkedIn, but for Indigenous communities. And so it's there to provide an equitable opportunity for Indigenous people to be a part of the workforce. And so that's one of the ways that, I am able to kind of work with different industries and kind of get a feel for where everything's at, and understand how, it all kind of interconnects. And the energy sector, it's like this all-encompassing being, I think, that we don't realize, like honestly, before 7 Gen, before the Catalyst program, I didn't realize, I always wanted to do things that really truly can help people, can help young kids, to just live an okay life, to survive, really, to thrive, right? And I always thought that's like in sport. So I also do a nonprofit for Indigenous track and field, and I'm like, okay, this is the way that we're going to really help kids, but and it does, for sure. But I think one of the biggest things that I've found about working in the energy sector is that, man, like when you start to shift and you start to change the perception of people's minds and community and just people in general, and I have conversations with my friends trying to get people to understand the impact that the energy sector has on everything, on all different industries, on all different sectors, right? Like you can truly apply it to anything. So I think this Becoming series and understanding like the different avenues of getting into energy and this work, this sector, really, like it's endless, right? Like you can work on health initiatives, you can work on housing initiatives, you can work on cultural initiatives, you can be an engineer, like it's really endless. And I think that's what I love about it is I love, the ever-changing, I guess, sense of it all. So yeah, so through medicine rope strategies, we also, a part of our housing project, our bringing in home project, is the basis of it. We're actually using an asset management tool. And this is another really cool part, and I've made it a bigger part of my job at MR lately, is really pushing this software because I think it's so huge, like to be able to lay out your assets and what exists in community, to be able to build an argument to say, like, look, housing is an issue and this affects everything, right? This affects health. Like I just said, it affects everything, and your ability to save costs on that, and not only helps the environment, it helps keep people healthy. It helps, with a sense of like ownership and responsibility for what you can control, and that's your consumption, right? It's really incredible. So I like this tool. We're going to be using it to kind of project manage our housing initiative, but also to collect like baseline data for us to be able to see kind of where we're at and how we're improving over the course of the life of this project. So that's some of the stuff that I do at MR. My job is pretty dynamic. Every day is different. And that's the really exciting, fun part. And I think, like, if you're thinking of a job in energy, really think outside of the box. If it doesn't exist, that's like the coolest part of the energy sector, is the innovation of it all, like the opportunity to create something that doesn't exist. How can we make it better? How can we, just, it all impacts like standard of living and where our communities are at and what we can do with those cost savings. So that's, I'm a sucker for energy efficiency now. It sounds so nerdy to say that, but really it's truly an incredible place to be. And I'm really, I think I really truly lucked out in the sense that, my background and kind of all the other jobs that I've had, like, I never in a million years would have guessed that it would have led me to, leading energy projects and, having these interests and this being where it's at. So you can go to the other slide. The next slide down. I just, included these little notes, just how big can I dream? Why do I want these things? I think those are questions that we have to ask ourselves when we're dreaming, when we're kind of, imagining, manifesting, what have you, where we want to be. Goals, what steps do I need to take to accomplish my goals? Really lay out those steps and, realize that it's not always going to be like, I'm the kind of person that's like, okay, this is where I'm going to get to. And then I just want to get there, without thinking of those things. So staying grounded, focused, and rationally optimistic. And then reality, life in the present. It's all about our perspective. So I think we can kind of move on to questions now. If anybody has any questions for me, I'd love to hear from you guys. But yeah, thanks for listening. I'm a little bit of a squirrel, but I hope that all made sense, and I hope that inspires you a little bit to kind of seek out the different opportunities in the energy sector, because there's truly endless opportunities.
Awesome, thanks, Jordyn. So I told everyone there would be so many things to learn about, so I hope that that lived up. So many different opportunities touched on. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box, or you're also welcome to raise your hand to ask a question. And we do have some questions that were submitted ahead of time, so I'll go to those now. So if I want to work on community energy projects, what kind of degree or training do you think is most helpful to get into those kinds of careers?
Mm-hmm. So with community energy, I think, honestly, the Catalyst program was huge for me. Like I said, it was 3 months of an intensive program. And then followed by a year of mentorship. So that was huge. Like with 7Gen, we're going to be offering the Indigenous Youth Mentorship Program, which will also be a good opportunity for people to be able to, young people to be able to learn about Energy 101, but also be able to build projects. And I think, it depends kind of what avenue you want to go into with energy, but I think STEM programs are huge, and there's so much funding and so much support for science, tech, engineering, and math programs right now. So I would say, like, take advantage of those. Like, when people are pushing these programs, it's for a reason, right? It's not just like industry demand or whatever. It's actually like, this is where the future is going, right? So really, start to think about that and think outside of the box. Maybe you don't want to be stuck in an office all day and you want to be out on the land. Look at like something in water or food sustainability, right? It all connects to energy in some way. But yeah, I definitely think, getting a degree, going that route is super beneficial. I think also exploring options like different fellowships that exist, because I think a key component that's missing in education systems, institutions, is that mentorship piece, right? I think like students are often, very much alone in that, like, we're there, we're learning, we're doing these assignments and we're handing them in, and that's that, but how are we actually preparing for like real life situations? How are we actually equipping ourselves to exist outside of that institution? So really, really do the work to like equip yourself outside of the classroom, I think.
Awesome. We have Corey Maddie here who's got his hand raised. So I'm going to allow you to talk, Corey. So if you unmute yourself, you should be able to ask your question.
I'm just wondering if you can tell me about any kind of relationship between youth and energy efficiency. Thank you.
Youth and energy efficiency. Okay, Corey was actually in my cohort of the 2019 Catalyst program. So thanks for the question, Corey. So youth and energy efficiency, I think one of the really, really cool things right now, and ICE is working on something along those lines, but then there's also other organizations like Ancestors Future, and there's like the Youth Climate Lab and all of those different organizations, Efficiency Canada. But I think in terms of efficiency and young people, like there's, all of the fellowships that are coming up, all of the opportunity to, create your own project, mold your own project, and introduce that in our community. The opportunity is there because literally nothing exists right now in communities. So I think like, finding somebody, asking questions, looking for mentors and people that can kind of guide you along the way, but just starting to build what those ideas are, and finding different programs or different avenues to support those. I think that's huge. And yeah, definitely like, ask questions about what does exist and what you can get involved with. Like, I think we see a lot of opportunity coming from like Eco Canada, NRCan, and organizations like that are really pushing STEM. And I think to narrow down what you're talking about, Corey, is efficiency. It all kind of goes hand in hand. I think if we're talking about energy, clean energy especially, efficiency is kind of step one, in that pathway. I don't know if that answers your question, Corey. He always likes to
stump. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think you're a great example too of how going after those random opportunities, going to the conference, talking to the people around you can connect you into so many great new venues that you've never thought of. So I think if anyone in the audience is thinking about some of those opportunities, connecting with Jordyn is a great place to start, because she's there's a lot going on with youth opportunities and energy. So it's a great time to get involved. We have a question here from Robbie, half question, half excitement. So he says, I have so many questions. I'm working on a dialogue on energy efficiency in Regina to deal with the terrible Saskatchewan scorecard you mentioned. And everything you just said is what it's all about. So super exciting. And he's also working on a community housing project, and he's curious to know about your asset management program. So if you have anything more to share about what you've got going on with that, and maybe some opportunities to connect, I think that would be great to hear about.
Very cool. I would love to connect. You're very close to where I'm at. I'm in Saskatchewan right now, and you're out in Regina. But yeah, the asset management software. So what it is, and it's not specific to Indigenous communities, but it was actually created by Indigenous housing directors and housing leadership from across Western Canada. And so there was about 20 housing leaders, and there was like a number of different engagement sessions to be able to build the software. And so it's actually built to be able to kind of speak to some of the issues that Indigenous communities see, especially like in terms of housing. So, we look at things like overcrowding, like what does that look like? What are our housing standards? What policies exist in communities? Is there a housing authority? All of those kinds of things. And so a lot of that is actually built into the software. So I'd definitely be interested to connect, and I can do like a walkthrough, a click through of the software with you, because it's pretty cool, and I'm super excited to use it for my project. Like I work at the company, so it's kind of funny, but yeah, it was just kind of like sitting on the back shelf, and I'm like, why are we not doing more with this? Like, this is so cool, and I can actually use it for like my energy project. And so, my boss is like, by all means, like, go run with that. So I have been, and it's pretty exciting. Like, it provides this like next level of accountability. So, and when I say that, I mean it in a really good way. It's a really constructive way of actually putting some accountability on community members and on housing staff. So for example, like how it works is there's QR codes that come out of every house. So I put my house in, and there's all the information on my house, how many windows, doors, all of those kinds of things, how much I pay for rent, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then the people can kind of talk back and forth, and you can see what needs to be done, right? And so we're using this for our retrofit project. And, one of the really exciting things about it is that we're going to be actually building an energy efficiency piece into it. So more so focused on like what retrofit actions need to be taken, and what does consumption and how does that play a role in the home, and all of the different equipment needed for retrofits, and how that changes like housing standards in communities, right? So it's a really cool tool, and I think it's going to be interesting to be able to like put all of the homes from each community, and even like, if it blows up to that point where every home in Saskatchewan is in there, to be able to see like our consumption and what we can do and how we can improve and help people, really. Yeah, I could talk about that all day. It's super exciting. So yeah, let's connect for sure.
Awesome. So there are a few more questions, but we are at 5:45, which is our hard stop time, unfortunately. So definitely follow up, get in touch. We're happy to keep having these conversations. And I do want to let everyone know that we will be having another Becoming event next month featuring Ari Sharif, who is an energy consultant in both renewables and energy efficiency. He's worked all over the world and has some really awesome stories to share. So please join us next month. And a huge thank you to Jordyn for joining us.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I see there's more questions. If you want to connect, by all means, like connect with me on social media, or you can connect with me through Kirsten. But yeah, I'd love to chat.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone for coming, and have a super good rest of your night.